young whippersnappers who won the competition. It's like they haven't made the announcement yet, but I mentioned to him your name, like just in passing, because he's a jazz cat, and he is up in New England. He said, it's funny you mentioned David Amram. I was just contacted yesterday. They want to know at Harvard if I am able to cover one of the clarinet parts in one of David's pieces that is about to be performed. So you're going up to Harvard at some point in the next few days?
Yes, or I should say, since the meeting recorded, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Special guest of Mr. Nenad Bach, great musician, composer, worker for peace in Croatia 30 some years ago. No one even knew where that was. And now using ping pong as a healing method for people with Parkinson's to help that part of the world, of all the people who have that, to see that we're human. And you're speaking to Mr. Michael Spudik of ASCAP, who does more for all musicians and composers in the country, including those like myself. And I'm in BMI, which is supposed to be a rival.
Oh, that's okay, David. That's perfectly fine.
But
we want you at ASCAP, though. We got to figure out some way.
You Harvard
with you, Nenad.
Was actually a new piece I'm writing called Global Suite for Winds, Brass, and Percussion. And I started writing that before the COVID came along. And unfortunately, the piece keeps getting postponed, and now they're going to do it and have to get extra people. So the person you ran into in the park, I guess, was asked at the last minute but I'm going up to Harvard, and I can't play all the parts myself, but the original melody, which I played on this program, I think last week, was The Lonesome Traveler, which I learned in the Chinese hula say. Whoops. Etc. And through a long series of peregrinations, which I had no idea I was going to do, I ended up playing that with another friend of Nenad Bach, also from Croatia, originally living here, which is our blessing, named Radoslav Lorkovic. And I wrote out some interesting harmonies that he played us so beautifully. I said, man, I'm going to use this in the second movement of the piece that I wrote for Harvard. The only reason I mentioned all that stuff is that people listening might say, well, if John Cage was interested in rolling dice, and Martin Feldman, a protege of his, said, look at a train schedule on the way to Stanford, Connecticut, and write a piece about that. I figured, well, maybe I could use my life experiences and actually write something with melody, harmony, and counterpoint, which is not necessary, but what I love to do, and which composers have been doing for the last 1,000 years in Western music with success, and use some of those life experiences and not tell anybody about it. So I cheated by telling you that. But all of that doesn't matter. That's only a way to make you think of something, because ultimately in music and in life, what you do is what's important, and what you say is what's maybe meaningful. That's why Mr. Zelensky is so terrific. He doesn't have a team of publicists and people try to build an image and give him plastic surgery, tell him what to say, and what's looking at polls and results and the guiders and makeup people and all that stuff. And he said, maybe just being a decent person and being for real was enough qualifications to run for president. And look at what a guy he is now. He's making us all think and be a little humble.
Yeah.
Just to see somebody in a position of authority, whether it's a band leader or a contractor or someone fixing the plumbing in a building or a school teacher or whatever you're doing, to actually do your gig with pride and step up to the plate when needed. So God bless him. And I just wanted to say that. And now I will get off the soapbox and let Nenad, who's the host, introduce himself, and you, Mr.
Yes,
Michael, a savior of music. And hopefully all the people listening will be inspired in what they're doing. And about 9:05, we're probably going to cut off early so we can watch the commander-in-chief
That's
the
right.
great, alert, exciting Mr. Joe Biden, sock it to him, we hope,
Yeah.
and say something beautiful. And we should be listening to that. And then those people who might, the millions of people who watch our program every week, will know that we're respecting the president and going to give him a break by cooling out at 9:05 and hoping we can sop up some of those vibes of wisdom that he bestows upon us.
Somebody created for me. I ordered the creation of these two flags of Ukraine and Russia, World Peace in 1 hour. And these are quotes from Woody Guthrie. I would like to see every single soldier on every single side. Just take off your helmet, unbuckle your kit, lay down your rifle, sit down at the side of some shady lane and say, nope, I ain't gonna kill nobody. Woody Guthrie.
Yes.
I'd say shake hands and give each other a hug.
Yeah.
And have a glass of vodka and celebrate. I don't even drink that much. Yeah, I think that we've proved that hatred, greed, egomania, swinishness, and megalomania is highly overrated and very unsatisfying for everybody. So we've had a chance over the last few thousand years to show what a waste of time, waste of life, waste of everything that is. And I'll just say, and then I'll be quiet, that Mr. Frank McCourt, the wonderful writer, told me when he was still a high school teacher, he said, you know, David, he said, they were fighting in Ireland for hundreds of years. We all got in a bar together on different sides, and someone said, hey, 600 years of this, why don't we knock it off? And they all had a beer.
About time.
And that was how they stopped killing each other in Dublin. They perhaps didn't like each other. They certainly had political differences and a different way of praying in church, but they figured, man, that's no reason to keep killing each other.
Yeah.
So they knocked it off. And I pray to heavens that perhaps what Mr. Zelensky's suggesting, that they just stop and knock it off, might happen. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, the thing is that
Sure would.
what I described in World Peace in 1 hour is that there will be wars till people make money. They are restocking the piles now. Two countries, Russia and US, are the most produce most arms in the world. So they are restocking the warehouses. And you know, my point of the whole World Peace in 1 hour is that give them that money so they to produce something else, because producing landmines is not beneficial for anybody, but producing like windmills for electricity, small one on the roof or anything, will be beneficial for society. But if they make the money, maybe they take the deal, because they are making huge amount of money with wars. That's why the wars happen. That's for profits for some people.
Of
You know?
course.
But
And-
I didn't know, you know, Frank. I know
Yeah.
Frank. Met Frank last year. We were at the same presentation.
Which Frank are you speaking about?
McCormick.
I think David was talking about Frank McCourt,
McCord. That's different. Yeah.
the author.
That was in Ireland. But if I could say to your two friends who wrote about Woody Guthrie, whom I knew, and I wrote the symphony in memory of it, symphonic variations of a song by Woody Guthrie, what a thrill. And
Yes.
he loved, and Paul Robeson and so many people loved Russian music. And we loved Russian music here. I didn't care for Mr. Putin, but I still love Russian culture, Russian music, and all the people I met from Russia, and always will.
Correct.
And I didn't care for Mr. Netanyahu particularly, but I still love being Jewish, and I still love Israel in spite of the politics. And I didn't admire Mr. Trump, but I don't hate America or Americans.
Right.
And I only mention that because political leaders come and go, but people are what's really important, human beings. And that's what's important, to have all of us to respect and care for one another. And to see those people in Poland being so good to those refugees as volunteers, that's pretty amazing. And to see in the Ukraine, a place where they've threw 30,000 Jews over a cliff and had a whole history of anti-Semitism. Here they have
Yes.
a president who's Jewish and a secretary of state, and all the people in the Ukraine figure, hey, man, those guys, they're doing a good job. So it's kind of wonderful to see that we can, they always say, you can forgive, but you don't forget. It's good for everybody to remember what happened, but that's so that it doesn't happen again. So I would say all that hatred and choosing sides is a waste of time. And in this country, we have to get ourselves together and all learn to respect one another. And I believe somehow that's going to happen. And maybe all this mess will make that happen. And at that point, I find it just as distressing when people who are consider themselves progressive are consumed with hatred towards people who don't feel that way. We have to find a way to believe, appreciate, and respect each other and understand some people, many people, every person has their own view and their own family and their own history and their own issues. But we have to just somehow learn that we have to appreciate each other as fellow species. Until people from outer space come from a different planet, then we got to look out, perhaps.
Yeah.
Although I imagine they're probably looking at us saying, man, we're not going to waste our time with these cats. They're all like infants.
By numbers, we are doing really well. We're almost 8 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're multiplying like crazy.
Yeah.
Not good for the planet. David, you knew Frank McCourt before he wrote the classic works that everyone loves.
He was a high school teacher, and I played at his brother's bar. The bells.
Oh, Malachi. Yeah.
Played at Malachi's
Bar
Bells.
located. There's always controversy about whether it's the bar on 72nd Street. Is that the true Malachi's?
No, Malachi had a lot of different bars, but
Different bars.
on 13th Street, right on the corner of 6th Avenue. And I lived in 6th Avenue and 11th Street, so it wasn't too much of a hassle to walk 2 blocks. The only hassle was ever leaving there and getting home because it was so much fun.
Right. And how did he deal with the whole issue of the British and the history, the English history, where he could have been consumed by it, but he had a way of understanding like that one cannot carry on these hatreds and bring them to the new world, like the old country anger at the Brits, like that was something that he resolved. And from discussions with you, was it like a mild-mannered person who was trying to deal with?
Oh, a lot of the people that came to the Bells of Hell were American-born, which Frank and his brother weren't, although they came back and forth from Brooklyn all the time. And a lot of them were people who worked to help out the IRA. But you go back to the Collins and the that whole period of the history is so extraordinary in the Irish history, which I know a tiny bit about from all the time I spent with people from there. And when I went there, still Frank was just a school teacher, and he knew of these people who decided they had one of those big meetings, and instead of shooting each other, they said, go get a beer, talk stuff out. And one of them said, hey, why don't we just knock it off? I said, wow, after 600 years, they figured, well, that wasn't achieving anything too much except messing up everybody's families and feuds. And that's the same thing with the history and racism and all that stuff. If we try to, first of all, to forgive ourselves, that's the hardest thing. And then secondly, to say, let's knock it off and just be for real. And that's what Mr. Zelensky is saying. That he's not saying that I won't use any foul language in your program, but he's not advocating murder and genocide and blowing people off the face of the map. He's saying, let's sit down and talk and get this war over with. And he's risking his life to do that. And he's not complaining or whining. He's being a leader. And his one-liner, when they said, well, we could get you out and set you up in a big apartment and TV,
it's a good one.
comedy show like you had in there, be an international superstar. Instead of going for that, which anybody's entitled to, I guess, he's actually walks the walk that he talked. And he said, no, I'm not looking for a ride. I'm
Right.
looking for some ammunition. I said, wow, one-liner will put him down in history. I just pray to God he survives. And,
Yeah.
just the thrill to see somebody come on the scene. And the amazing thing is that NATO, with all countries who traditionally have hated each other, and all the countries when I wrote my piece for Elmira Dodvarova, that great Bulgarian violinist who came over here with her Stradivarius and a change of clothes and nothing. She escaped when it was really hard to leave there. She's just a great violinist. And when I wrote a piece for her and her husband, Howard Wall, who's a monster, great French horn player,
Right.
I thought of using this Bulgarian wedding song. And I said, well, there's some wonderful rhythms from Macedonia. She said, no, you can't mention that because the Bulgarians and the Greeks and everyone, he said,
It's
all
controversy.
play each other's music. So the wedding song would be okay because we all know that as a wedding song. So I had a problem because I didn't want to look like some American jerk and saying if I was using the music of some country that was the only communist country left in that particular group of people, or someone else that whose independence and nationality was being questioned by other people, all those feuds. And the thing is that everybody plays everybody else's music anyway, but I didn't want to give it a name. So she went over what I should do so that the name wouldn't be offensive. And then people could enjoy the music. And sure enough, she played that Bulgarian wedding in Romania and a lot of other countries. And everybody dug it because they all know the music anyway. And that's the same thing when I was in the Middle East, when I was in Israel and Egypt, and I found, and Iran and Pakistan and a lot of other places. So much of the music, if you know the music and you sit down and play with people, man, you're playing the music. That doesn't mean the world isn't there, but there's a higher level than just hating each other and being upset by what politicians, big blowhards, say. If the wind's blowing hard in the direction which they're blowharding with. And of course, when things change, then everybody jumps off that gravy train and gets on another one. And that's no criticism of politicians. They got a hard gig. But for us, those of us folks who don't have to be enslaved in foul, rotten, violent, selfish, sick, narcissistic feelings, we could think maybe there's something better than that. And that's the one thing about Nenad. When he found out he had Parkinson's, instead of saying boo-hoo and becoming a professional winologist or complaining about our healthcare system or complaining about anything, he dove right into it and said, hey, man, we're going to play some ping pong and make everybody feel good.
You
And
made ping pong his weapon, right?
and he's done not only for Parkinson's, he's done more for
Conquer the world.
even more for ping pong than anybody. So that they say in vernacular, alta cachers like myself, who's 91, I can't jump around the tennis court, and I never really was very good at that anyway, compared to tennis players. Let's face it. But I can appreciate that because within my physical and technical limitations, I can not only appreciate the game, but appreciate what that's doing. And seeing those beautiful shows that he did was just as wonderful as seeing him when he was playing with the symphony and all the violinists in the orchestra were smiling because they saw there's a guy who's the star of the program, the composer and the leader. And he's not just a big, selfish, narcissistic schmuck with no talent, but rather somebody putting out something sincere and beautiful. And boy, that's what the world needs. And that's what I hope our program encourages to those, all you millions of people out there listening devoutly every week.
By the way,
As people dug your music, David, we have now Doug Yeager is gracing us with his
Great.
praise.
by the way, today, March 1st, It's exactly 5 years how I started ping pong Parkinson.
Oh, boy.
March 1st.
March 1st?
2017. And
Wow.
today is March 1st, 2022. Tomorrow we'll have a tournament in Pleasantville and celebrate 5 years.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we have to arrange to all come to Pleasantville in the next couple of months,
As
Wonderful.
we've done before.
as we did once before, yes.
We have to bring David to play some ping pong.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
David, do you play ping pong over the years?
Well, I used to play. So many friends had ping pong in there, and my father-in-law, before he passed away, had a little ping pong set up in his basement. And I used to go down there and play with his son when he was little, who used to beat me, the little rascal. But it was fun. And then I started watching ping pong when they had the Olympics and seeing those people smashing the ball at 120 miles an hour. I said, wait a minute.
Yes.
I never thought of ping pong in that way. So it was great to see the ping pong players that Nenad has, because you could see they're out there playing ping pong, trying to get the ball over the net. And I admire those ping pong players, especially in Asia. They had some fantastic players. I mean, that was like a whole other level. But it's kind of like going in a batting cage. When you say, okay, when your kids want to play baseball, you go to one of those things and you say 90 miles an hour. That's what the pitchers have to be able to do just to get into the major leagues. And then they got to go up to 100 miles an hour and control it. So you start off with the 90 miles an hour. That's so terrifying. Then you get down to about 40 or 30, and that's scary. So you realize that the level of some of the ping pong players and all the athletes is so phenomenal that it's like if you didn't know how to behave and you barged into a jam session and didn't wait till you be invited, which I did, and sometimes that would take a year, and then you humbly do it. If you came with an attitude, as they said, to say, okay, man, let's play Cherokee in B major, which is B flat tune, and B major on a trumpet or on a saxophone is like a killer. And then they play it that fast. And naturally, the person who was acting like they were hot stuff was completely demolished. And people who could do that, like Sonny Stitt, could play it in B major that fast because he played an old. So Sonny or someone else would say to that person, man, when you go home, practice, and next time you come back, leave your attitude at home.
Yes. I have a question for you. Yes. What is the film? It's an old Russian film. Well, let's talk about this after Hangountology. I'm on the Hangountology with Nenad and David and Michael.
Are you? Where are you, Murray? We don't see you.
Murray, just go to your email. I'm going there right now. Okay.
Oh, wonderful. Make it a
He
quick
wanted me to tell him who was in his Russian film. But I was going to tell Nenad that David and Michael may remember a man who worked for me for 31 years, Martin. And Martin passed away a few years ago, but he died at 85, but I'm on the 15th floor. He never took the elevator. He would walk up and down the steps at 85.
Smart man.
And he got his beginnings in show business by touring with the Harlem Globetrotters in the UK. And he was the halftime act at halftime playing ping pong.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. And
did that? Wow.
And he got paid for it. So he was a professional ping pong player.
Wow. Well, all the talent he had.
In the 1950s.
Yeah. I have pictures from the exhibition match a couple of weeks ago that if you want to see, I'll show you just a moment.
Great.
Yeah. Here is and you can see these people. This is Will Shorts that was painted
Oh, yes.
by Princess of Jordan. She came to play with us exhibition match. She is two-time Olympian.
I saw the photos with the beautiful Princess of Jordan.
Yeah. This is Will Shorts.
Well,
And who is this gentleman?
That's Will Shorts from New York
puzzle
Times.
master. Every Sunday morning, Doug, he's the New York Times puzzle master. He appears on National Public Radio every Sunday.
Okay.
This is champion of the USA champion, Amy Wong. She came to exhibition.
Wonderful.
Present.
Well,
That's
the way they call it.
This is
Table
the
tennis.
princess. This is the princess.
Zaina.
This is the princess?
Yeah, Zaina Rashid. Yeah.
But it's called table tennis, not ping
Table
pong.
tennis. Yeah. Ping pong is popular.
Yeah, I like ping pong more.
Me too. It's Zaina.
Oh, that's decisive. Look at that.
Warren Rosenberg took all these photos.
Wow, that's a great shot.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Woo.
To be beautiful and athletic,
Yeah.
and to, when she could live the life in a castle, she's out there doing something
Yeah.
good and worthwhile.
Yeah.
Oh, and you were giving her a hard time,
Yeah.
and she's smiling about it.
Yeah.
Does she live in Jordan or?
She lives in Jordan, Amman. Yeah.
She does live there.
Yeah. We played in two different places. This is Michael Toll from Greenwich. He has these
Will Shorts.
were shorts.
Oh,
These are the books and painting. She did two paintings. Will. She's an artist.
Wonderful.
that jacket.
Yeah, that's jacket somebody made for me. Yeah, from New
Wow.
Orleans. It's a painting on the jacket.
Looks like Picasso did it.
Yeah. Well, or Jackson Pollock.
Right.
Even better.
Yeah,
An old friend of David's, Jackson Pollock.
really. Jackson Pollock.
Jason?
Jackson.
Pollock.
I'm sorry, don't be insulted.
Jackson Pollock.
Oh, Jackson Pollock. Oh, right. Yeah.
You knew him years ago.
Yeah, when I first came to New York, just before he passed away.
And this painting behind is a friend of mine, Ignacy Blanc from Barcelona. He painted this.
Fabulous.
These are Amy and Zaina.
Look at the shirts. The logo.
His life imitates art.
Right.
See?
Nenad, a good chance that they will be in Croatia this summer?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes. See, this life imitates art. You see petals in the background.
Mm.
It's just a little,
Life imitates art.
yeah. So that's,
look at that.
she drew that, finished drawing.
She's very good,
Yeah,
multi-talented.
multi-talented. Yeah. That's Warren Rosenberg on the right, the guy who took all these photos.
Oh, that's the gentleman.
And this is
And Xana's mother's from Pennsylvania, isn't she? Queen Nor?
no, that's not. She is married the prince. Yeah. This
Oh, I see. Okay. The prince's mother is Queen Nor.
correct. So this is and this is my daughter here, by the way, Leah.
Oh,
Wonderful.
right. I remember.
Yeah.
And who's the lady with the dog?
She's Jen Rose from Manhattan. She's
Right.
doing ping pong parkinson in Manhattan.
Wonderful.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great. Oh,
Yeah. Anyway,
And who won the match between the two ladies?
I think champion Amy Wong, but barely.
oh, barely. Wow.
Zaina was fifth in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is doubles.
In your book, Nenad, that photo before, they
Yeah,
were,
that's a book. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Ping pong Parkinson. It started with the tremor is shaking up the world.
Yes.
Here we go.
Well,
And that's a couple of days ago that happened.
So
Last weekend.
this is how maybe we can stop the war in Ukraine
yeah, we started talking about that.
with ping pong. I just saw on my phone on the way back here that the actor, oh my God, famous actor. He's been in Ukraine the last week filming a documentary on the war, and he just walked to the Polish border. He and his two partners in the film crew.
Let me Google.
Yeah, Academy Award winning actor.
Yeah, he's been in the news. I can't think of the name either, but he's very well known.
Oh well.
So what's his point there? He's trying to document?
Well, he more than anyone else led the rehabilitation and raising money for Haiti when they had their massive problems.
Sean Penn.
Sean Penn, yes.
Yeah,
I met
Sean
him
Penn, right.
once or twice.
So he's just trying to make the world aware to Ukraine. And, because he's a movie star, people may watch the movie and.
Yeah, he's a very smart man, actually.
Yeah.
Very, very, very intelligent.
Mhm.
I spent about half an hour talking to him.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's quite intelligent. But it's not just Ukraine, it's Russia as well. There are people who resist the whole regime.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so this is the moment. Yeah, there is also hypocrisy of the West. They try to impose sanctions right now. Like what were they doing like for last year?
Exactly.
So it's hypocrisy of politics.
Yes. So what is your next campaign in Europe? Back to Croatia.
We have 4 open tournaments. We have tournament in Germany. We have tournament in Portugal. We have tournament in Slovenia. We have
Wonderful.
tournament in Netherlands, and we have tournament in World Championship in Croatia. So that's 5.
Great. Where in Germany will it be?
It will be a small town, Eisen. I
Not Eisenach, is it?
EYS, and then something else. I can't remember now.
Huh.
Oh, there will be 2 tournaments already in Baden.
Near Baden-Baden
No, not Baden-Baden. Bad Hamburg.
or Bad Homburg?
Yeah,
Oh,
Hamburg, yeah, HOM.
Bad Hamburg and Eisenach. I can't remember. I can't believe I can remember now, but I wrote it so many times. But it's an unusual name. Let me just try to check. Its searching engines are great stuff. Like,
David, did you ever play there?
that's one place, Doug. I think we went by it.
The
That's an
Autobahn just passed right by, huh?
amazing country. I haven't been to Echte by Nordheim yet. That's where they have
Oh,
some of our great-great-grandfathers, folks that didn't come over here, were buried there, and they still have the old place where he was a shochet, that was a kosher meat
Wow.
slaughter,
yeah.
with the things on the side of the building where they used to hang the animals before he slaughtered them. But things got sort of rough in the meat slaughtering thing, so they had like a equivalent of a rent-a-cop called a mercenary. So he needed some extra money. So he just joined up. They put on a suit and got a gun. And he was fortunately on a Hanoverian, and they were the ones who were on the side of Napoleon. So after the Napoleonic Wars were over, the Jewish German people, the Jewish faith, were allowed to choose their own last names instead of being given Fitzenheimer, Stinkelbaum, and all that stuff. They were
Kind of thing, yeah.
they were allowed to choose their last name. So he was the Moses ben Huda, Moses son of Amram. So he made it Moses Amram, and chose that name out of the sixth book of Exodus. The only reason I know all that stuff is that's the first thing my father taught me. And it's interesting that my father went back there, and some of the old people seeing my father, who was an old person by then, said, "You looks like an Amram," because he was standing up straight, and I don't know, they're probably, I can't imagine everybody looked that much, but those people do really have that familial thing. And when I was in Germany in the army, and then afterwards when Doug and I went over there and played in Frankfurt, and it's quite an amazing place and a wonderful, wonderful history. And interestingly enough, with all the stuff they went through, they have the most severe anti-discrimination laws in the world. And after bombing so many places almost off the face of the earth, they don't have any atomic energy, and they cleaned up their rivers. So who knows? Maybe when you think of all the suffering that everybody in Russia and Ukraine and all those places, study the history, all the stuff they've been through for hundreds of years, and oh my Lord, just incredible. All the history of violence and craziness and everything. And I think a lot of people in the world, even those countries that all hate each other and hate us, now they're all getting together and saying, enough already. And they think maybe they're not pretending it ain't happening, or that they could be next. They're saying, man, we had enough of that stuff.
I saw on the news today, you may have seen earlier, that the TV tower in Kiev was hit with a missile.
Sure.
So there's no television or radio anymore. And a former US ambassador said that tower is just a few miles from Babi Yar.
Yeah, but the good news is that a lot of the Russian soldiers are so disgusted that they poked holes in the gas and in the fuel lines so that they get enough fuel. And there are people out there risking going to jail, hundreds, probably over 1,000 by now, who are saying, no, this ain't right. And they're risking their life by going out and protesting. So it's not just all of the bad news. That's definitely going to be here. And obviously they're going to just try to demolish and blast everybody off the face of the earth. But the great news is that a lot of people aren't digging that. And even the Fox channel, not known as a home of progressive thinking, I thought, well, I just tried not to vomit and be a bigot and see how folks watch that are feeling. And sure enough, except when one or two of those poor people that really think that Donald Trump and Putin are God's gift to the world, that are, can't stand the thought of anybody not being white, whatever that is. Malcolm X said white's a state of mind. I so go along with that. But at any rate, do-gooders and of the all persuasions, you can watch the Fox channel, and their regular news programs are the same things. And a lot of them, even Sean Hannity saying, what despicable behavior this is on the part of the picking on a small country like that, and that's wrong. And it was kind of amazing. So in a certain way, this is in some freaky way, this is going to bring people together, if only because it's like seeing a horrible accident or typhoon or something, where somehow people start to look after each other. Like 9/11 was, as horrible as that was, for about a month, New York City, or 2 months, New York City was really a place where people kind of talked to each other and looked for each other.
Let's just hope everybody gets together and brings help to Ukraine before it's just a pile of gravel.
Yeah.
And dead bodies.
Yeah.
By the way, that town in Germany is called Eystrup, Eystrup, Eystrup.
Even one Michael Spudik doesn't know.
Yeah, that's a new one on me. I'll look it up.
Small town.
Yeah,
And the nearest big town is Bad Homburg, you said.
That's not nearest town. That's another tournament.
Ah,
another tournament.
Yeah, and the one is also near Lisbon. Another town in Maribor, Slovenia. So it's happening.
wonderful.
Yeah.
David, did you say you have never visited Croatia, not even passed through, or Yugoslavia when it was Yugoslavia? Have you ever been?
Not yet, but I'm looking
Wow.
forward to it.
Yeah.
So that means Slovenia, Serbia.
Let's make it happen.
Oh, I know musicians from all over. I even know the king of Slovakian. He was the bebop. When I went to the Cork Jazz Festival, he was like Mr. Old Time Hipster. I think he was almost as old as me. God bless him. And he was the one guy in Slovenia that was playing contemporary jazz, which he was risking his life every time he did to play that during all the World War II. And then when the Russians kind of took it over, then it was verboten in a different way. He managed somehow to stay out of jail and continue playing that. He was fantastic. Bosko was his nickname.
Petrovic, Boško Petrovic.
Yeah, he played vibraphone.
Yeah, he's from Croatia actually, from Zagreb.
Terrific.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I knew Boško Petrovic. I knew him personally.
He's something.
Yeah, he was quite a character. Yeah, he was quite a character. He died a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
He was in New York once, performed in New York as well.
I made up a whole song about him, and then he invited me to come over there to play, but it was so mysterious. I wasn't. I might not be able to I couldn't hitchhike back, and I had a feeling perhaps I'd have to pass it by. But he was wonderful, and the people he played with were great. But I remember they were young guys, and he told me all the other people in other countries are already trying to steal them from him. But he was Bosko was his name.
Yeah, Boško Petrovic.
Petrovic.
Yeah. Boško was his first name.
Bosko
Was his first name. Boško, B-O-S-H.
Oh, the
A-O.
yes, yeah, Boško.
It's the same as my cat. Yeah.
So Murray Weinstock, his name has been here for 10
Yeah, it
minutes,
keeps saying connecting.
trying to connect an audio.
Yeah.
Let me ask him
Murray.
what's wrong.
He has a bad connection probably.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, I saw Spudik. I saw that wonderful video you took of Murray playing "Take the A Train" at that crowd,
Oh,
playing up a storm.
Doug was present for that. Yeah.
Doug was there at the very end. He gave Doug slap.
Yeah. Did you notice the high five between these two? Soul
was
Brothers.
Fantastic. And it reminded me of all the places I played in the 50s when the audience was drowning out the band and nobody cared. And one time I heard the great Barry Harris playing, and he was so terrific, and the place was so noisy. It was this huge sports bar that they made, and they had a jazz piano there for about a month. I guess someone thought that would be hip, and you couldn't hear. I had my ear right by the piano, so I could hear him. I said, "Barry, man, you sound great." He said, "I'm sorry, the people are making so much noise." He said, "I don't care, man. I needed to."
Sorry, we see your name here, but your
Practice my
voice,
stuff.
your face don't come up. You need to turn on your audio and your video.
And then when Sonny Rollins was playing at one time, they had a fantastic trumpet player who was playing. And again, everybody was making noise. And I said, "Man," I said, "you guys sounded so good." He said, "I didn't pay that any mind." He said, "I was there for Sonny. I was listening to him. I don't pay any attention to that stuff." So they were some of the great, and you hear some of those Charlie Parker records that were made live where he's playing like incredible, and you can just barely hear it because all the people are making so much noise. And in the midst of playing in these rotten places with everybody yelling and screaming and pianos not being tuned and one microphone that didn't work and fighting the owners to get played, all this magnificent, sophisticated, beautiful music was created and played and is a gift to us all. And that's true with a lot of music all around the world, everywhere. So we can just be grateful for that gift, that generosity, and what the guys from the president of Croatia, excuse me, of Ukraine was expressing was a lot of the spirit I've seen, and we've all seen in jazz and in the theater and in music, and even some of those films made on a low budget and stuff where people really care about what they're doing and want to give us their gift. And I only say that because that's, I think, what we have to think about. Otherwise, we can get so bogged down with the BS that overwhelms us and immobilizes us from doing anything except either feeling maybe we got to join the BS train, or if we continue being against it, we're just going to get squashed and we're misfits. But rather, in adopting Miles Davis' philosophy when he said of that great song, "So What?" And he called it "So What" because he knew that dark side was there, but there's the other side, and you can figure, well, you're not going to change the dark side. You can't pretend it's not there. You got to deal with it. However, there's something else a lot better to devote your time and devotion and lifetime to. And once you make that choice, then you can understand everybody else is in the same boat. So you're not superior or inferior to anyone else. You just have a choice whether you want to take the super swine route or not, and not feel holier than thou if you take the other way, because that's a long road, but it's a lot more fun, a lot healthier. You meet nicer people, and you can have a good time no matter what. That's a hangoutology message for the evening, folks. You'd be glad to know.
Preparation for Joe Biden.
So BS train, that's title for the new song, I guess. Join the BS train.
And connecting to the Ukrainian president, David, the way you said he speaks from the heart.
Yeah, because he was being for real. He was like so many people that we all admire. As I mentioned in the program, I think last week when said to Sir James Galway, "You're so gracious to people, man. You speak to the president of the symphony and the guy who's cleaning up the stage, and the people in the second violin section who are considered to be non-existent, and the percussionists and the flute players in the orchestra that are never going to get to play a solo, and you're cool with everybody." And he said, well, I'm from an island. We don't endorse putting on airs. And that great blues player that worked in a garage, and somebody heard him singing in the garage, said, "Man, this cat's great," and recorded him one of those, ethno-funkologist home tape recorders. They put a record out, and he got nominated for a Grammy. He never even had a gig except in the garage. And suddenly they said, "How do you feel about that?" He said, "Well, it's in my head's like that second part of the garage while I'm laying cement." He said, "It don't swell." And what Doug Yeager told me, the wonderful comment by a friend of ours, a great, great songwriter, she said, "When we go out to the beach, we can all put our blankets down or sit up or walk around," and said, "There's plenty of sunlight for everybody."
No egos on the beach.
Yeah. And mention
That was Christine Lavin.
Christine Lavin, greatest songwriter.
No egos or no eagles?
That's right.
What egos or eagles?
No, it was at a time that there was a great folk scare in the mid 80s when everybody thought there was the next folk revival. And about 5 people became big from it, but not 50. And there were a lot of young guys who were gonna make it, and they had big egos, EGOS, and Christine was a little older, and she was always the organizer. She told everybody, she said, "Folks, when we all go to the beach and lay down in the sand, there's plenty of sun for all of us. We're all treated the same, so you can leave your egos at the door."
Nice.
And when Beethoven was an old, ill man, supposedly couldn't hear. I think he could hear. He just said, man, I can't stand it anymore. So he just pretended to be deaf so he wouldn't have to hear all that BS. But at any rate, when he was an old man, his final thing in the Ninth Symphony, instead of, having it a festival of wineology, he celebrated that using the beautiful Schiller text of the brotherhood of man. And so many of the people in our history have left us with something beautiful. So I wish that was the main fare on TV and even programs bigger than ours, if that's possible. I know if you only, I remember when I was in Hollywood and people were saying, wow, if it doesn't make $380 million the first weekend, it's going to get tanked. And I said, wow, what has that got to do with anything? Well, it has to do with everything of people who are putting that kind of money into something with the idea of having some colossal barrage monstrissimo. And that's fine. But the nice thing is that the young folks of today taking something of this size, that's just a tuner, but an iPhone can make their own film and they can make their own recording and put it up on the internet, and they can have their own poetry book and they can do their own stuff. It's called indie. And what a wonderful thing that is, because it means now that people can become a needle themselves. They can be their own needle in their own haystack. And somebody like Michael Sputi that goes out there and listens to people who are starting out, some of whom are terrific, always have been, instead of after 3 years of saying, go shove it, they realize, man, there's someone there that's actually is encouraging us and is listening. Because all you need is one listener, one carrot per horse to make remember how they put the carrot in front of the donkey or the horse to make it go forward to get that carrot and they get them to move. Well, we all need, really, you just need one person. Charles Mingus told me that in 1955. So if you have one person, you're doing great. And with the indie, a lot of people are getting out there. And my only problem is now, when I go to look up something on YouTube and see an old friend where I can actually sit down and see what the heck they're doing in a quiet situation, especially if they were recorded in Europe or Asia, where the person holding the camera, first of all, knows which way to point it, and secondly, is interested, and the sound is good, and it's done well. You say, wow, that's what they were doing. And more than that, hearing all these other fantastic people of all ages doing new stuff, and some of the old traditional things that have been there like 1,000 years, some of the stuff I was blessed to be able to see and stumble into. But now everybody can sit at home and partake of all that wisdom, all those gifts. And then they can start to see what's in their neighborhood. Maybe that guy or the woman in the dry cleaning store might know a whole bunch of stuff, a language, cooking, music, dancing, and being a person that we could learn from. So it's a very exciting time to be alive. And with all respect to video games, Oxycontin, and network television, there's other stuff with a lot of value.
It's true, but also it opened the door for untalented people as well. So there is a lot of crap.
Oh, sure. But there's always been a lot of crap. And as Miles Davis said, so what?
Yeah.
You gets fixated on a lot of crap, then you have to move voluntarily into the nearest outhouse and dwell there and say, "Gee, I wish they were growing flowers or something."
Well, it's interesting this past 2 weeks where, we're surrounded by all this crap that's constantly coming on social media, et cetera. And then all of a sudden we see this country, not a small country, the size of Texas with 40 million people, and their president, who we all had been making fun of the last 2 years, this little guy, 5 feet tall, who was a comedian, and we didn't take him seriously. And he's now like the hero of half of the world. He comes up and speak. He was offered the last 2 weeks to be taken to safety outside of Kiev. He refused to do it. And he's walking the streets with flak jackets. And I mean, the guy, you know, really has, his stripes have brightened in a different fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes.
Talked about that, Doug. He didn't need a ride. He's going to go down in history with that.
That's right.
I don't need a ride.
Ammunition.
That was a
Ammunition.
great response. I don't need a ride, send me ammunition. Yes.
Ammo.
Well, I hope that's the decline of one of the last powers.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Fellas, that's what I was thinking to tie into Joe Biden's speech coming up. Like,
Yeah.
David, we need
And
to
in 2
from
minutes,
the heart.
I'm gonna leave in 2 minutes to go hear the
I
president.
have television open. I will tell you exactly when he starts.
We'll let you know, Doug.
Okay.
It's about 9:05, we're told, right? That he's actually going.
I have TV on this side here. So I will
Okay.
see exactly when it's happening.
But David, what we need tonight is this, you know, way of approach to the American people, where he just tells us what from his heart, you know, how he's feeling about the world and what we need to do, and hardships as well, and the pain we're going to have to endure.
Yeah, well, I wish him luck, and what we need is to be nicer to each other.
Yeah,
Period. For
needs
start,
to come through.
and then take that long road. And I think if that happens, and all the younger people who are better informed and don't trust anybody because they know that they're all just hustling after their money and are looking for something better, eventually, as disgusting as things might be, we will emerge better from it. And I'd say in 200 years, everything will be cool.
Well, you'll be the only one still here to tell us about that.
That's right. Well, that's because we eat enough vegetables.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor and he was shocked. He said, man, I just got what cardiogram? And he said, no. He said, you're in amazingly good health. So I figured, well,
Good bill of health.
I hope I can be around and maybe make a contribution to somebody for something through not just what I try to do, but what hopefully I might be able to do to make some kind of a contribution. That's why it's so great to see a guy like Zarelsky and all those other people that are out there that are saying, man, we're going to stay here. We're proud. We love our place. And we're not, you know, that was very inspiring to see that you're not a freak if you don't just say, okay, I guess I got to go along with that, even though I know it sucks, because everything sucks. Then you're finished. Well, if you buy victimhood, and I think having self-respect as well as appreciation for other people and a love of your own heritage means a whole lot. So
You channeled Phil Oakes with that song, When I'm Gone, right?
exactly,
You have to do it while you're here.
yeah. So we'll Mr. Biden and all those other people their best. And I just hope on the next time, if I ever play Attica Prison again, which I did once,
Ah,
perhaps some of the famous ex-politicians, I won't mention their names by even dignifying them on this program, but hopefully, if we do see them, I'm sure one of them wearing an orange suit, I'll just say, Mr. Trump, everyone in New York sends you their best wishes. Goodbye. And then leave the building.
right.
When I hear those
Close the
sticks
door.
clink, clank, and I know I'm locked in. Oh, I'm not quite as locked in. When the sixth locked in one comes, I'll say, man, I'm glad I don't have to spend my night or my life here. Maybe they'll put some of the right people in prison, because that's what the prisons are supposed to be for.
Well, and hopefully if we're all, let's put it this way, if Putin does not set off the nuclear missiles and we're still here next week, hopefully The Hague a lot of countries are saying that the Hague needs to try him for war crimes, like they did Milosevic
Common sense.
in Serbia.
Well, you know, the best thing, Doug, would be just if he loses all that money. That goes for a lot of other people, and they have to go out and get a job.
That'd be the greatest pain.
They have to realize you got to pick the right end of the mop up, and somebody's going to come around. If you do a messy job, they're going to say, "Hey, man, you better mop that floor right, or we're going to mop you." That perhaps that will justify the balance of
That'd be a beautiful poetic justice.
Vladimir, just mop it again. Vladimir,
See, Lou Donaldson,
Vladimir, just mop it again.
the great
Mop
saxophone.
the floor again.
Yes.
Lou was being hassled by hecklers. Said, "Hey, man, you suck. You go back to the army." And Lou Donaldson just sat there. He was a great saxophone player. Finally, he said, "Brother," he said, "I don't come to your place of work and tell you how to handle a mop." that was the end of the heckler. He snuck off.
Right.
But there's an art to mopping a floor, and those guys that never had a job, that are used to humiliating other people, hopefully they can find redemption. And then they could be like the people in Nixon's stooges, all of whom discovered religion and made a fortune selling books about how they were rehabilitated. They went back to doing the same thing.
Well, many years ago, I had a summer job mopping the floors at Diamond Paper Company.
I put those in the when I was a cleanup man in Nantucket. Unfortunately, I got chilly, so I tried to change the water heater to make things a little hotter, and blew out the stuff and ended up in the hospital. That ended my career as a mopper, a short order cook, and then I was a second busboy. That was
The concept of the second busboy. We discussed that at a.
Memoirs of the second busboy.
that's
My life as a second busboy.
But I got that picture when I asked the famous rehearsal pianist, said, "You know, I've admired you so much and you play so many tunes. I'd like to be," I was only 19. I had my little busboy uniform on. I'd been there. I said, "You know, my favorite song was Homecoming Virginia when I was brought up on a farm, and I memorized the solo. That was the first solo I ever heard. I memorized Big Spider Beck's solo." I said, "Do you ever play that?" And he said, "I don't take requests from the second busboy."
How did he use your second?
And I said, "Oh, I think he's putting me in my place." And I didn't make any more requests, but I understood what it's like to be a victim of that status. And conversely, what a creepy thing for someone to do, to be
Your child.
in that status and feeling it was necessary to squash someone else.
Yeah.
By what he perceived as their inferiority because of their societal condition. And sometimes things like that can be helpful, because then you can say, well, in a Buddhistic sense, I was watching that, being a recipient of that advertising, of that disgusting part that's in our DNA, since we're all hooked up. And maybe if I feel an attack of that swinishness coming on, I better quell it, because it's a big drag to have to be on the other end of that.
David, if I may interject, Richard Feynman with his classic, "Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman." I mean, that title reminds me so much of like the potential of a title. "I don't take requests from the second busboy." That could be a next,
Sounds like the title of an off-Broadway play.
A chapter of my new book. Thank you.
a chapter, of course.
It's a title.
A chapter for one of your early, that 19-year-old David Amram.
It's a title for the book.
Yes.
Even an overall title, it would be fantastic.
So Mr. Biden is still not on yet?
Yes,
Yeah,
he's walking.
Oh, he's walking to the podium? We have to,
Podium.
well,
And shaking hands with all those people that would say, "Damn it, I wish I had that gig."
yeah.
I'm going to let you go then.
So
our millions of listeners, I bid you adieu. And to Doug Yeager, my main man, who sat,
Right, if Doug Yeager showed up, we made it.
I can only put away my
Great to see you all.
the mop at home, and Michael Spudik, who saves us all, from Nenad Bach, without whom ping pong, Croatia, and the art of being hangoutology would almost be a thing of the past.
And may God save Ukraine
Ping pong.
And to our
and ping pong.
and to our worldwide audience, we love you, but we got to give the president a chance. We don't want to suck up all the oxygen in the universe.
That's right, the president has to speak. We need to listen.
But we'll see you next month. And Nenad, God bless you, man, for everything you do.
Bless all the second bus boys out there.
In the first one.
Night, Nenad.
Bye.
Bye-bye.